in order to get work, or what I recommend for you is to do something that you really, really like doing, and don't compromise with a job that you don't like, that you don't want to wake up every morning and go to, because that is pure misery. So follow your heart, do things that you really enjoy doing, and you will get paid for it. You may not get paid as much, but you'll get paid for it. You'll be able to make a living, and you'll be happy, and that's the main thing that you can do. Thanks.
Paul, thanks for having me. It's good to see everybody here. So at Farrell, Braun & Martel, where I practice now, I've been there for 10 years. Before that, I was at Landell, Strickland, Diamond for 10 years. Similar firms, similar environmental practices. We've got a group of about 20 environmental lawyers, and we do a variety of things. So my practice, and I want to just stop for a second, because it's not all about practice of law at these different organizations you're at, and I'm sure each of the other panelists can speak to this too. You know, there's a billable and sort of a client component to what you do, but there's also practice development, where you're seeking work, and that sort of dovetails with a lot of what Tim was talking about in terms of writing, doing talks, and a variety of things like that. And there's also an administrative component. With any organization, there are people who need to run that organization, and who need to be skilled in dealing with people, need to be skilled in dealing with hiring issues, with client issues as they might arise. So there's all these different pieces to it. There's not just, you don't just spend your whole day working on client matters. There's a variety to what you do, including a pro bono component. Administrative component might be volunteer service to American Bar Association or something along those lines. So there's a lot of different things that sort of make up the day. With respect to true environmental work, as I mentioned, our group does a lot of different things, and I've been doing this for 25 years, so I would say that my practice has evolved. When I started, I was a trial lawyer with the Department of Justice after doing a clerkship, and I sort of stuck on a litigation path for quite a while, but my practice has really evolved to where now I don't do a lot of in-court litigation. What I spend a lot of time doing is administrative work with various administrative agencies. So when I was thinking about the question that Paul posed, I sort of thought about it in terms of not so much the clients with whom I work, but it's more the agencies with whom I work, because they're very driven by those agencies. So, you know, for example, I do a lot of work with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and those matters can involve a variety of different things involving contaminated property. Paul and I have a matter that involves polypropylene pellets that have been released to the bay down in the San Leandro area. There's TMDL issues that come up with respect to PCB releases, mercury releases. So the Regional Water Quality Control Board does a lot of different things in a number of different areas. And for an environmental practitioner, you're blessed to be in California, because we have a distinct number of agencies within Cali, PA, and there's a whole other set of agencies within the resource agencies, and then there's a number of not-for-profit organizations and citizen group as well that drive a lot of work. We also have matters that arise on a local level with health departments. So I have a matter with the Department of Environmental Health in San Diego, which was designated as a lead agency under a health and safety code law. And they are the lead agency with respect to our client's cleanup of a former skeet and trap range. So think about clay pigeons being tossed up in the air, people with shotguns. There were the Winchester people thought that that was going to be like bowling. It was going to be franchised, and there are going to be lots of shooting ranges all over. What we're left with is a lot of clay pigeon debris, which has bound up polynuclear aromatics and other harmful compounds, and then lead shot, which sits both on the surface and beneath the surface. So our client there is a developer that bought a 4,000-acre parcel in a probate sale, and you buy warts and all, and so this is translated into work for our firm since 2004. We work a lot with DTSC on different site issues. There's a site we have that's right next to the rail yards project in Sacramento. UP used to own about 260 acres or so near Sacramento, and that area where the rail yards used to be is being remediated, and there's a very large-scale development that has the backing of the city of Sacramento. and is somewhat proceeding. It's been affected obviously by the economy, and there's been some interesting issues that have come up in that context. We work with US EPA. We had a site in East Palo Alto that a lot of our sites go on for decades. And the East Palo Alto site was a former pesticide site, and we worked with the client to remediate the wetlands, and they restored above and beyond what they were really required to do, and we were able to use that in negotiations with US EPA to compromise a cost recovery claim and get a natural resource damage waiver. We have a lot of different enforcement cases. Those enforcement cases can arise in the context of some of the agencies I've mentioned, or they might arise with a local publicly owned treatment works, like, for example, City of American Canyon, to name one. And we had a client that was a beverage manufacturer with a environmental manager who decided that he was going to manipulate samples and fabricate discharge monitoring reports, which is a crime. And he was sentenced last year, but we were able to conduct an internal investigation, do a voluntary disclosure to the agencies, and were successful in getting the case resolved for the company on an administrative level. They obviously had to pay a lot of money, but it was successful from that standpoint. And then, you know, of late, there's a lot of work in the air regulatory and climate change area. Perhaps not as much as on the policy side, but you know, we do air variance hearings where you know, a client might need help with respect to compliance with a permit. And then there's a lot of work now in renewable energy. We represent First Solar, which has had success with the Desert Sunlight Project, which is on BLM land in the Mojave Desert. And they also have another multi-thousand acre project going on in San Luis Obispo County. One of those is on BLM land, the other is on private land, so they present a lot of different issues in the NEPA context. A lot of private attorney general suits and citizen suits involving Prop 65 and Clean Water Act cases. You know, where the AG does not act, oftentimes there's a number of private enterprises and entities that'll fill that void, and that provides for some really interesting experiences as well. So, you know, in terms of the law school experience, I knew I wanted to practice environmental law when I was going to law school, but unlike what you have now, Golden Gate really didn't have a formalized environmental program. They had all the things that are available to you now, which are the legal clinics and things of that sort, but there wasn't an environmental legal clinic, there wasn't all these offshoots and these symposiums that took place. But having said that, you know, we had Professor Moskowitz teaching appellate advocacy, we had Bernie Siegel teaching trial practice, rest in peace, and all the things that you still have available to you. And those clinical programs, I think, are really key because they do give you a lot of experience on your feet. I think they allow you to follow your passion, which I completely agree with Tim with. I think that's something that distinguishes a Golden Gate student, is that you know, you've got a different road that you have to follow, and I think that's evident to the people who are looking at your resumes, looking at your skill set from a clinical standpoint, or from an intern standpoint, or from an externship standpoint. The other thing that's great about this school is the access to the courts that you have, the central staff externships, different access to courts. So, you know, all those things are activities to, you know, definitely take advantage of. It's a tough job market out there, there's no doubt about that. Our firm, on an entry-level basis, hires exclusively through a summer program, which I could not get through at this point. I could only come in laterally, but having said that, our environmental department really relies more heavily on lateral hiring for junior level associates than we do the summer program, and that's just something that's kind of unique to our practice and the way that our practice has evolved and developed. So in terms of the things to do, I mean, it's, you know, participate in the clinical stuff, attend diversity programs, come to things like this, network, meet people, volunteer to work on symposiums, volunteer to put programs together. Just get yourself out there and stay involved, and you'll find that the contacts that you make, I mean, I think that that's the remarkable thing about the environmental community, is that all of us, we do different things, and we sometimes find ourselves on different sides of an issue, but as an environmental practitioner, you're bound together by, you know, a sort of a, you know, not a duty to the environment, but you like what you do, and you want to promote environmental issues. And so when you come to these programs, there's a real camaraderie associated with people who practice environmental law, notwithstanding whether they're on the defense side, the government side, or the public interest side. So look forward to questions. Thank you.
Hi everybody. As you may have picked up from the introduction, I actually kind of do a lot of different things with my life these days. I teach a little bit here, usually one class a year. I teach quite a bit at San Francisco State University to undergraduates in the Environmental Studies program. Many classes, most every semester basically, they come up with a class, they throw the word environment in front of it, and they call me up and try to convince me to teach it. How it works over there. But I don't think you're interested in any of that, at least that's not why I'm here. You're interested in my role at this nonprofit we founded just a couple years ago called the Wild Equity Institute. And I want to tell you a little bit about what I do there, why we decided to start a new group, and then if you're interested in that kind of a trajectory, I'll tell you what I did to get from where I was to where I am today. So a few years ago, I guess it all kind of started for me, this job. It started with me looking at my career to date, looking at the career of all my contemporaries and the people who came before me, and realizing that everything, whether you're talking about the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, the number of species on the brink of extinction, the amount of inequity in the world, everything seemed worse than when I got started. Now, I had all kinds of significant victories, legal battles, administrative work that had come together and made small differences here and there, but in the grand scheme of things, the system didn't seem to be working. And so I took a step back and I said, well, why is this the case? Why is all this effort we're putting into the movement, why does it seem like it's not enough? And it just struck me, as I'm sure it strikes most of you, the scale of the threats that we face are so great, and the resources that we have bring to bear against those threats are so inconsequential in the face of those threats that it's impossible at its current size to really envision a winning strategy for a lot of these larger problems. And so I sat back and thought about that for a minute, and I'm a very competitive guy. I grew up playing a lot of sports, played sports in high school, and played lacrosse in college and these sorts of things. My dad was a big athlete also, which I think also differentiates me a little bit from a lot of the folks I work with in the environmental field. Folks don't want to talk about sports with me, it seems like. I was like, I'm in it to win. If I want to win, we got to figure out how to do something different we've been doing so far. And it struck me we need to figure out how to grow the movement on. I don't know how to do that for sure. But I had an idea. My thought was movements that seem to succeed, and you can look at this, you can look at contemporary social movements, whether it's what seems to be happening with gay marriage, or movements in the past, with the successes we've had, civil rights movement, other movements. You can try and find models at any rate. It struck me that they have some moral foundation which is sound. And they have some task, some specific thing that people can do to bring that moral foundation to fruition at some level. And I was trying to think, well, what could bring the environmental movement together, the various arms of the environmental movement, the environmental justice work I was doing here at the clinic, the grassroots conservation work I was doing at the Center for Biological Diversity for many years. And it struck me that at a very real level, the work was similar in its moral foundation. Clearly the EJ work we do here at the clinic is founded in redressing inequity. This almost goes without saying. But I think very much the work we do at the Center for Biological Diversity is also about redressing inequity. Not inequity within our species, not this intra-specific inequity that we are always focused on in certain areas, but an inter-specific inequity, this idea that so much of the world is being taken by us, and so little remains for everything else on the planet to just survive. So well, maybe if we have a shared moral foundation, we can build a movement, starting with an organization, the Wild Equity Institute, that focuses on equity, brings people together to try and win.